Fortnite used to be about surviving the storm. But now it's about cramming as much constant action into every minute of gameplay that you possibly can. Player counts in Battle Royale playlists have reached all-time lows, with faster-paced modes taking over. How did this happen? This is a good thing. Is Battle Royale doomed? This video covers the TikTokification of Fortnite. TikTokification is a pretty simple concept. With short-form content dominating the social media landscape over the last few years, this has led to pretty much every single social media platform adopting the never-ending vertical scroll of short-form content. Short-form is so addictive because it repeatedly gives a rapid reward or payoff in under a minute. In an hour, you can get dozens, if not hundreds of dopamine hits and constantly have something new, funny, or interesting happen. It's designed to be addictive because it's infinite, where you never know what's going to happen next, so you're curious to find out. It's a constant loop where you're always after just one more. Then 30 minutes later, you're still scrolling. This is called a content loop. You're hooked by an interesting piece of content, and then your brain releases dopamine, which is the happy chemicals when you enjoy a video. The algorithm then learns from your actions, whether you like the video, if you watch it for a long time, if you share it, if you comment it. Then it will supply you with more of the similar style of videos that you're clearly enjoying. Then this content loop continues, pulling you deeper into the app. So what's this got to do with Fortnite? Well, let's take a look at the original content loop of Fortnite when it was first released. You load into a free game, jump in, and you suck. Horrendously. It takes you 10 games in order to get your first elimination. Just me? Every death is painful, but you'd load back in. You struggle and you work hard for your first victory royale, but the dopamine rush is incredible. It wasn't just a game, it was a goal, and the win felt earned. You take a picture for the story, and you and the boys are over the moon. But it's late. Just one more. Just one more. Come on, just one more. Just one more. One more. Come on, come on. Just one more. One more. Come on, just one more. Now, where TikTok's just one more probably makes you feel like you've wasted your time, Fortnite's original content loop was equally as addictive, but rewarding. The core mechanics of Fortnite are incredibly skillful, so each elimination and each win felt earned. There's a huge skill gap between good and bad players, so players winning games know that they've earned it. But time spent on TikTok often feels like you should be doing something else. But what happens when winning a Fortnite game is no longer rewarding? I've been playing Fortnite for over 7 years. I've won over 17... How many have I won? No. 1,400 games. I was about to lie to you. I won over 1,400 games. Now, that's actually pretty bad, given there's people who have over 4,000 wins this season alone. Nerds. But it's fair to say that the dopamine rush of winning a game just really isn't there anymore. Yay! Woo, we won a game. Now that I'm not totally awful, winning a public match feels relatively easy because I'm better than most of those players, and winning a ranked match is often sometimes frustrating because I feel like I should be better and I'm just dying a lot. To make things even worse, I can't imagine what it must be like as a new player to Fortnite trying to get that first win. I can't imagine loading into a public match and just having nothing but bots. Therefore, your first win is just made insanely easy and you don't get the dopamine rush of failing over and over again to eventually win. The benefit that players had when they started playing in 2017 and 2018 was that everybody sucked, so there wasn't that big of a difference between the new and the bad players. However, now there's a massive difference between a new player and a bad player. So I understand why Fortnite implemented bots. It's a necessary evil. A lot of the newer players would probably die over and over and over and over and over again to even the worst of players, and then eventually just give up Fortnite altogether, and that's no use for anyone. Easing them into the game makes a lot of sense, but unfortunately it also removes one of the best elements about Fortnite, which is grinding for your first win. So for the new and long-term players, the dopamine rush of winning a match just really isn't there anymore, and I don't believe this is Epic Games' fault, to be honest with you. It's just kind of the nature of a game that's been out for so long. To make things worse, Battle Royale has a lot of problems itself, mainly because it's kind of boring. Without the excitement of grinding for a win, most players just don't really care that much. This leads to everyone just fighting over and over again, and that makes the matches incredibly slow. You drop in, loot for 5 minutes, and then there's so much downtime as you're hunting for players to fight because they're spread out on such a large map. It sometimes feels like a badly written YouTube video where you're interested in the topic, but the creator just keeps rambling something irrelevant over and over again, and you really want them to get to the point. Not this video. Battle Royale really has just become a place where you're just trying to fight other players and not really care that much about the win. And it's also a place to see the new content, the new map, which I think is fantastic. But the problem here is that most other playlists have faster and more constant action and better fighting than the Battle Royale playlist. Now, Ranked tried to fix this by making players care about winning Battle Royale games in order to rank up, which worked well to start with. That wasn't until people realized that it's relatively easy to get to the higher ranks. I mean, Laserbeam did it literally without moving. And then really good players don't even need to focus on the win because they can just drop elim after elim after elim. So Ranked has similarly become a place where good players just go to practice fighting, and bad players who don't necessarily understand the rank system are just getting fought over and over again. I have a full video on this, so I won't go too in-depth on Ranked, but I'll link it at the end if you're interested in this topic. Unfortunately, with the Victory Royale not meaning much and Battle Royale matches being pretty slow, Fortnite's original content loop just isn't as effective as it used to be, leading to players having less reason to load up the game. Now, despite what many people may say, Epic Games are not stupid. Their most recent valuation showed the company was worth roughly $22.5 billion, with probably roughly half of that being because of Fortnite. And you don't just get to that level of income accidentally. So over the years, they've attempted many major ways to keep players around when Battle Royale might not be the most interesting. The most obvious of these is their two throwback OG seasons, where for 1 month in 2023, the Chapter 1 map returned, and then for a month in 2024, the Chapter 2 map returned for similarly a month. These 2 months brought millions of players back to Fortnite, but it wasn't really a long-term strategy since you can't rely on nostalgia forever. I mean, look at the player count now of the permanent OG playlists, and maybe some of these players came back to play this and then now they've stuck around, but it's clear that it's not millions of players. So with the stocks of the Victory Royale at an all-time low, now it's time to invest in TikTokification. Now, you could say that this started in Chapter 2 with the introduction of the late game mode. However, I think Reload actually played a much bigger part of this. Think of Battle Royale like a long road trip. You gear up, plan your route, and hope the destination is worth it. There's build-up, tension, and moments where not much happens. But when it all comes together, it feels earned. Reload? Now that's a roller coaster. From the second you load in, it's fast, chaotic, and full of action that you can repeat over and over again. No detours, no downtime, just non-stop fights and a dopamine hit around every corner. It's Fortnite stripped down to its most addictive loop, and it's worked. Since launch, Reload has been one of Fortnite's most successful game modes. Reload has a smaller map with 40 players instead of 100, and if you die, you're able to respawn unless your whole team is already wiped out. Having a smaller map and more players alive leads to more constant, fast-paced action where something is always happening. In Battle Royale, there can be 2, 3, 4, 5 minutes where you're doing absolutely nothing, but this almost never happens in Reload unless you're hiding. These matches are also around 5 minutes shorter, but still retain the same Battle Royale elements. You glide in, there's still drop spots, you loot, you fight, you rotate from the storm, and if there's enough players alive, there's even an endgame. But you have all of this just with less time spent doing nothing. You get double the action in less time, and you could just argue that this smaller, more compact version of Battle Royale is just better. Seeing the success of this mode, Epic Games went even further and added Blitz Royale, which is played on an even smaller map around half the size of the Reload map, with games only lasting 5 minutes. You spawn in with a weapon and some shield and barely even need to loot. You don't really even need to think about your positioning, your rotations, and endgame, but it's just all fight, 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 fight. You can clearly see that with each new game mode, they're stripping out more and more and more of the boring parts of the match that slow down the pace and instead focus more on the player versus player engagements. Fortnite's content loop has changed from a long, slowly paced 20-minute circle to short 10, 20, or 30-minute loops where players get satisfaction from the eliminations, not necessarily from the Victory Royale. Short form is so addictive because it repeatedly gives a rapid reward or payoff in under a minute. In an hour, you can get dozens, if not hundreds of dopamine hits and constantly have something new, funny, or interesting happen. It's designed to be addictive because it's infinite, where you never know what's going to happen next, so you're curious to find out. It's a constant loop where you're always just after one more. Now, this is what I said at the start about TikTok, but this absolutely applies to game modes like Reload and Blitz. But this isn't just happening in Reload and Blitz. Since the release of UEFN, this is happening across the game in player-built game modes as well. There are a lot of really good game modes to play like Zone Wars, Endgame maps, 1v1s, and if you look at the maps with the most players, there's nearly always going to be some sort of red versus blue, the pit, 2v2 piece control, and some Zone Wars variations. The similarities between these is that they're fast-paced, they're full of action, and there's almost no downtime. You can load on at any time of the day, jump in, and just have fun. The other side of UEFN, however, is the algorithm. Now, because Epic Games pays out huge amounts of money to creators who create experiences that get players to play and have high player accounts, there are people who really abuse this system. There are XP maps that fake getting you XP by standing AFK on railings collecting coins just to increase their playtime as much as possible, as playtime is an indicator that a map is successful and it'll be promoted more. There are maps that have daily bonuses to keep you coming back. They put fake items in the thumbnails to get more clicks. They put fake interactions in the map to make you think you're going to pick up a weapon, but instead you favorite the map. Or there are maps that are just straight copy and pasted from successful other maps. This creator, for example, has an only up map doing well, but if you just notice, all of his other maps that he's posted here are just other popular maps that he's pretty much just copy and pasted. Now, props to Epic, they've actually done a good job lately of removing a ton of these really sketchy and dodgy maps. And it also seems like they've removed the ability to search for XP to stop these maps being looked for. But if you search on TikTok or on YouTube, you're going to see hundreds of these videos just promoting similar style maps that are just really, really low quality. But what this really means is that if you find Battle Royale a little bit boring, not only do you have the fast-paced reload and blitz to play, you have thousands of other potential experiences to load into instead. Whether you want to play 1v1s or get baited into a map that doesn't actually give you more XP, then there's always something there for you. So what are the actual effects on the player base because of this? Well, Fortnite is hitting all-time low player counts, and what's interesting though is about what playlists are actually being chosen. For most of Fortnite's lifespan, the playlist with the highest average players has always just been the Battle Royale playlist. Some of the average numbers here are truly insane if you look back through history. The Fortnite OG season, for example, in 2023 averaged 874,000 players, but this month, in July of 25, it's looking to be its worst ever. Now, these numbers may be slightly different when this video is being edited, but as of recording, the average player count for Battle Royale is just over 105,000 players. The Zero Build Battle Royale is also following a similar trend, with the average player count currently being 101k. Now, you could say this is obviously just due to the fact that Fortnite's overall player count has decreased over time, but the platform share metric is clearly indicating that players are choosing to play other playlists over the Battle Royale ones. If you look at the Battle Royale playlist, the average platform share since the numbers were public is 20.27%. This basically means that for out of every 100 players on Fortnite, 20 of them and a pair of legs are choosing to play the Battle Royale playlist. However, for the last few weeks, this has been under 9%, and Zero Build is also still at all-time low platform shares as well. Now, the complete opposite has been happening to Reload. When looking at its platform share, you'll notice that when the playlist was released, it had a huge spike in player counts, which is common with new game modes. Then, over time, it dropped to all-time lows in November of 2024 when the Chapter 2 Remix season was released, and then ever since then, it's slowly been gaining players over time. Now, Blitz is only a Zero Build playlist, but it hasn't been out long enough to really make some solid conclusions. But you can kind of draw a connection between the all-time low player counts that Zero Build Battle Royale has and then the release of Blitz. But again, not really sure if this is because it's actually better and players enjoy it more, or just because it's a new shiny toy. But one thing is clear, players are choosing to play Battle Royale less and less, and instead are opting to faster-paced different types of game modes. And Epic Games seeing this are producing more playlists that are faster-paced. So is this push towards more short-form content loops and gameplay actually a bad thing? Well, now, what most people actually enjoy about Fortnite are the player-to-player interactions, not necessarily trying to win the game. So by producing more different playlists and more ways to play Fortnite that heavily rely on the part that people actually enjoy, this just creates more ways to play the game that you already love. I really don't think there's many people out there sitting saying, wow, how can they have added Reload? This is just the worst thing that's ever happened to Fortnite. It's a very fun playlist to play. Beside all those people who keep just running away from you with shockwaves, man. But Fortnite's fundamental core mechanics are just fun. If you're a casual player, there's a constant supply of new and interesting items and updates to keep the game fresh. And if you're a competitive player, there are a few feelings as good as hitting a triple edit one pump on someone. The best players in the world still celebrate and trash talk whenever they clip another player, and focusing more on those moments makes a lot of sense. So is it just going to be a constant downward spiral for Battle Royale until the playlists are dead? Personally, I don't think so. I just think now more than ever, with so many other options in terms of what game modes you can play in Fortnite, what really will draw players into Battle Royale is if the season is enjoyable and good. If the new map, the new chapter, the new weapons are exclusive to the Battle Royale playlists and they're amazing and that's the only place that you can play them, that will just naturally draw players in. They won't mind the fact that the gameplay is a little bit slower if just the season and chapter itself is really good. And on the flip side, if the season isn't good and players are not enjoying it, they have other playlists like Reload and Blitz and all of the UEFN experiences to play instead. Now, where I think the complete opposite of this is true is for the competitive game modes. Battle Royale itself is very well paced for a competitive tournament. If you're watching it, it can be a little slow, the mid-games can be a little bit boring. However, when you're playing, there's actually a payoff of winning a particular match. This is specifically true in a Victory Cup format as well, like the Solo Victory Cups, which have unfortunately been removed as of late, because these actually give you that satisfaction of winning a game. There's a slow, long, drawn-out game, but there's a reward at the end, and there's actually a reason to play for the Victory Royale. Similarly, in good point formats where the Victory Royale is worth a lot of points, there's a reason to grind for the end, and therefore the slow, long gameplay makes sense. The FNCS Pro-Am was pretty much the only good tournament that was held in the reload mode ever, as most of these have been insanely boring to play and actually very frustrating, and tournaments that are extremely elimination heavy immediately just wipe out the chance of any average player doing well in them because the average players just are not going to drop 20, 30, 40, 50 bombs like pros can. I also think that the lower player counts in Battle Royale modes is due to the fact that there's not that many open tournaments that players actually care about in this season. Since the removal of a lot of the lower level PC cash cups and solo cash cups, why would a lot of players jump into Battle Royale and practice this actual map, the rotations in the season, when they're not going to play tournaments on it anyway? And this is where I feel like ranked really should step up for the Battle Royale playlists. If there was a good ranked mode, which there is not, that would draw players into the ranked Battle Royale playlist and give them a reason to actually play it. Now, I've actually done a full video covering that already, and if you want to watch that, you can click right here. Like, subscribe, let me know what you think. Peace.